Hello, everyone. I'm Julia. I'm currently a senior at the Windsor School in Boston. I'm also the founder and president of STEM Connects, an organization dedicated to connecting, inspiring, and empowering high school girls interested in STEM fields. I'm here today with Isabella Mandis, who is currently a junior at Harvard and is the founder of Girls into VC. She was also recently named in Forbes 30 Under 30 Boston for her work. Isabella, thank you so much for taking the time to speak today. And to start us off, could you just give us a general introduction about yourself and your work?
Yeah, I would love to. And thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here. Really passionate about getting people involved in STEM, specifically women. So I think this is a great initiative. So I'm Isabella. I'm a junior at Harvard, like you mentioned. I started in the tech world very young, knew that was what I wanted to do, basically, and forever. I really was obsessed with the iPhone and Apple and Steve Jobs and thought it was amazing, and then started to learn how to code at a young age. Then I had a friend and mentor of mine who was at Stanford at the time, and all of her friends were building cool companies, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so I would help them with different projects here and there, getting to work with these amazing founders, and then ones that were in school as well. And so when I got to Harvard, I started realizing that this was something I really wanted to pursue, started learning about venture capital, which is basically investing in entrepreneurs and startups. And so I started going to all of the VC events that I could find on campus and was the only girl at all of them. And similar to you, I went to an all-girls school growing up, and so I was never the only girl in a room. And so I wanted to do something about that, reached out to women in the field, just kind of learning about what they did, not a traditional path to go into right out of college. And so I had pages and pages of notes. And then the few girls that I would meet, I would become close to at these events. And so was sharing my notes with them and then realized that I wanted to expand upon it. And so started Girls into VC my freshman fall. So 1.5, almost 2 years ago now. And I really wanted to just build a community of women interested in entrepreneurship and venture capital. And then, yeah, it's kind of spiraled from there. Now we're at over 6,000 members, do lots of content. We have community resources, podcasts. We also have programs. So we have a 10-week Intro to VC fellowship. We have an externship where members work with, founders, lots of different things. And it's been great.
Yeah, no, all that programming and events sounds amazing. Well, so I guess my first question for you is that I saw that you are a statistics major in college, and you mentioned that you first kind of became interested in this world of VC through tech. And so I was wondering if you could talk about how in your work and maybe the work you've heard about with others, how exactly does kind of this relationship between the more tech entrepreneurial side work with also the investing in venture capital itself?
Yeah. It's funny because I think the relationship between tech and entrepreneurship is extremely high, especially if you're investing in tech companies. Like what I want to do, you can also invest in healthcare, consumer, lots of different fields. But I'm really interested in tech. And so I think having a technical background is really helpful on one hand to actually understand what even the companies are doing that you're investing in. It's hard to truly understand a company if you don't know what comes behind that, kind of behind the hood. In terms of statistics, honestly, I think it doesn't really have any relevance to what I'm doing. I'm on the data science track, so I do a lot of coding and CS and things as a part of that. The reason I wanted to do that instead of CS is because at Harvard, the CS major is very theoretical, and I wanted to be a little more hands-on and practical in terms of what I was doing since that just interested me. I wanted to really like do hands-on projects in my classes. And so that was the reason I did statistics instead of CS, which I thought I was going to be doing when I got here. But I really loved it so far. And I think even when I'm learning now, so much of the new technologies are with AI and natural language processing, and that all actually falls under data science more than it does CS. And so I think actually it ended up working out really well, and I've got to understand better a lot of the technologies than I think I otherwise would have if I was doing CS.
And I guess similarly on that note, when thinking about skills needed both within the VC world and when you're running an organization as large as Girls into VC is, what would you say some of the most important skills you've either had or that you've had to learn? What are some of the most important skills to kind of run an organization on this large of a scale?
Yeah, oh my goodness, it's a good question. I think there's so many. I think one, like starting anything, so like you starting STEM Connects, like starting something is totally different than being a member of something or even leading an initiative. Like taking the ambition to start something and keep it on a consistent basis is absolutely, I think, invaluable. I think it doesn't have to be the thing. Like I started so many things before Girls into VC, and none of them had any interest by anyone other than myself. But I still think that those types of things are like a practice round. You get experience, you get to learn a little bit. So many of the amazing founders, I mean, even if you think of Mark Zuckerberg, where Facebook was his like first startup, like if you actually look behind that and before that at his history, he had so many projects that he did that he started something before the fact. And so I actually think that's a really common trait between entrepreneurs and successful people generally as a whole, is that they want to be building something and starting something and taking that, and it's a completely different muscle. And so I'm like a big supporter of everyone kind of starting something and doing that. I also think just learning. I'm very passionate about education. I think the education system today has a lot wrong with it. I think it's important. High school is really busy and even middle school and before that, but I do think it's important to kind of figure out what interests you and pursue that outside of school and really just dig into whatever it is. It doesn't have to do with anything that you want to study in the future. I have friends who are going into finance and just really interested in astrophysics and like read up on it and learn about it. But I just think like getting to pursue that is something really special.
And so maybe with just a little more detail, what was the process for you like to actually create Girls into VC? And then maybe what was one of the biggest challenges you faced? And then how did you get past that?
Yeah, great question. Okay, you might have to remind me because there are a couple parts to that question. So going to the first part about creating it. So I actually had like a very unconventional way of, I think, starting something. I'm a huge planner. I love planning things. I will plan out how I will do something in so long, never actually get it done. And so when I wanted to start Girls into VC, this was literally like 2 nights before my final. My freshman fall, and I really wanted to start this, and I started planning out everything. I created a big calendar and was planning, okay, what am I going to do what day, when am I going to, how many posts am I going to pre-draft before I announce it, all of these things. And then the night before my final, I kind of realized I'm gonna spend so long planning this, and I'm gonna want to do all of these things before I launch, and I'm gonna miss my time. And so decided to just launch. I literally had nothing. I like got the Instagram handle and the website domain name. I made a website in maybe like 3 minutes. It was the worst website you could possibly imagine ever. And I posted on my LinkedIn and I said, hey, I'm creating this thing called Girls into VC. And the website literally just had Girls into VC, bringing women into venture capital, and then a place to put your email. And I posted it on LinkedIn and it got a lot of traction. People were really interested. People that were in the field wanted to give back and contribute. And then young people like me wanted to break in and were asking how they could join. And so then I kind of realized like, oh my goodness, there's something here. I need to do something. We went on winter break for a month. And so I worked like basically all day, every day. My parents were very mad at me during Christmas. They were like, what are you doing? Be with your family. But I got on calls, I put together a team, I kind of did everything, and then it was already up and running when we got back um for school, which was crazy. And then the second part of your question, there was something about like mistakes. What?
Either in the process of creating it or in the time since, what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges you faced with the organization?
Yeah. Um, I think going back, so I'm kind of hypocritical because I talked about how starting something is so important and you learn so much. But I think that has to do with the fact that there are so many challenges when it comes to starting something, and it is so hard. And I think I meet with all these founders, and I kind of always thought like, oh, when founders say it's really a full-time job and you're always working, I kind of thought, yeah, like that's true, but you also set your own hours and you decide when you want to do things. And I think I realized even in starting Girls into BC, which is like a project for me versus like I can't even imagine what it's like actually starting a company and putting your life on the line and quitting your job. is that starting something is really, really tough, and doing one thing all the time is really hard. And you're constantly thinking about it, and you're being hard on yourself, and you're thinking about ways you can improve. And so I think I just completely underestimated that. And, that's more my fault. But I think it's just really hard mentally to be doing this. And when you have people like in programs of yours are relying on you and keeping consistent with everything, it's a lot to manage.
And so, on that note, for I guess more of like a little bit of a behind the scenes look, what are some of the typical tasks that you do for the organization?
Yeah, so we do lots of different things. So like I mentioned, so now I have an amazing team in place. So me personally, I'd say it was more like kind of managing that everything happens, but in terms of like in the beginning it was all me doing everything. So we have different content, so we have newsletter, so putting that together, podcasts, interviewing guests, finding guests, blog posts, writing those up, finding out what to talk about. Now we have a fellowship, so 10 weeks intro to VC, finding guest speakers. We also have our own like 200-page curriculum that we put together. So I wrote that and did research on that and all of that. And then going through finding out who we want to take for each fellowship, reviewing all the applications, following up with people. So a lot of it now I'd say I'm doing more of like the managing that everything gets done and administrative work and things like that. But yeah, lots of education and opportunities and resources.
And so, I think you said you're nearing the 1.5 year mark almost for
Yeah,
Girls
we're
in
about to
Tech.
near the 2 year mark. I started December 16th, something around there.
That's really exciting. How I bet that time has flown by. But given the past almost 2 years and the experiences you've had and what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently or that you wish you had changed in the past?
Ooh, yes, but also I very much live in the mindset of like continue forward and you learn from your mistakes. I think if anything, I wish I kind of just dived more ahead in first and like committed fully and a little hesitation in the beginning when you're starting something and like is this the right decision. I had to step out of some organizations I was a part of on campus just because it took up too much time and wanted to commit myself more to girls into VC. So I think just like taking all of those dives a little sooner and really pursuing that. But generally, I mean, I'm so grateful for everything that's happened because of girls into VC and all the people I've met and our team and everything. So yeah, I feel pretty lucky.
So for our final question for today, what advice would you say to high school students, especially high school girls who are interested in VC?
Yeah, great question. I think one for the high school girls, for the girls part of it, is really feel confident in yourself, and it's much easier said than done. I think when I got here, I always felt, going to the all-girls school, I always felt comfortable raising my hand and speaking up in class and asking questions, and that is not the reality for 99% of the girls here, and you will experience being the only girl in the room and people not trusting your opinion because you're a girl and all of these things. And so I think really believing in yourself, again, easier said than done, is so, so important. And I think generally like find out something that you're interested in and do it 100%. And even if you start small, you will be able to make an impact. So starting a podcast, starting a newsletter, if making, if you're interested in sewing, like make a clothing line or sell things, like whatever you're interested in. And it can literally be anything. If you're interested in TV, make a short film, like there's so many things that you can do, and just by taking one step and kind of doing something and building something, like I think it's gonna pay off exponentially in the future.
That's great advice, and I know that's something I'm also definitely trying to work on. Well, I guess thank you again, Isabella, for all of your responses and insights. And to those who are watching, this recording is located on the STEM Connects website as well, where you can find previous recordings with different speakers, as well as staying updated with future events as well.
Thank you.